The polar vortex just completely shattered above our heads, and what is happening right now across America will shock you. I am talking about a 70-degree temperature swing happening in the same cities within just days, while people are still losing their lives on the streets from the brutal cold that has been gripping half the country. Right now, as I am recording this, Chicago is preparing to go from 11 degrees below zero just weeks ago to possibly hitting 60 degrees this week. That is not normal, folks. That is the atmosphere literally breaking apart above us, and the consequences are still unfolding in ways that will affect millions of Americans through the rest of this winter. But here is what is really terrifying. While the eastern United States is finally getting this temporary warm-up, there is a massive Arctic cold pool building over Canada right now that could send us right back into another deep freeze by the end of this month. The same scientists who have been tracking this crisis are warning that we might get one more brutal blast before winter finally releases its grip. Let me tell you what's been happening to real people while this weather chaos has been unfolding. In New York City alone, 18 people have lost their lives outdoors since this crisis began. 18 families destroyed because folks had nowhere warm to go when temperatures plummeted. The city deployed 400 outreach workers, running buses around the clock, checking on people every 2 hours, but they still couldn't reach everyone. One night, emergency services received 5,700 calls from people in distress from the cold, and there weren't enough ambulances for 300 of those calls. This is not just a New York problem. Nashville transported over 1,500 people to emergency warming shelters. Mississippi opened 93 warming centers across 51 counties. Kentucky activated 113 warming locations. But even with all these efforts, the vulnerable are still suffering the most from this atmospheric nightmare. What makes this situation so dangerous is how the weather patterns are behaving completely differently across the country. While the eastern states have been locked in this historic deep freeze, the western United States has been experiencing record-breaking warmth and the worst snow drought in decades. Phoenix hit 83 degrees, while North Carolina was buried under more than 2 feet of snow. Think about that contrast. It's like two different planets existing side by side. The science behind this is genuinely frightening. 3 separate warming events have attacked the polar vortex this winter, and that is almost unheard of. The atmospheric temperatures 30 kilometers above the Arctic surged 40 to 50 degrees above normal. When the polar vortex gets disrupted like this, it does not just bounce back, it stays broken, sending these chaotic weather patterns spinning across continents for weeks or even months. Right now, meteorologists are watching something they call stratospheric sudden warming, and it is confirmed to be happening around mid-February. The polar vortex is literally splitting in half, with one piece moving toward Asia and another settling over northeastern Canada. This kind of atmospheric disruption typically takes 10 to 20 days to affect weather at ground level, which means we could see another round of brutal conditions by late February or early March. The human cost has been staggering. Over 170 people did not survive this crisis across multiple states. Mississippi lost 29 residents. Tennessee saw between 23 and 29 lives lost. New Jersey recorded 20 fatalities. These are not just numbers. In Nashville, a 92-year-old man was found in his home after the indoor temperature dropped to 47 degrees. In Texas, 3 young brothers, ages 6, 8, and 9, fell through ice while playing, and their mother could not save them despite desperately trying to pull them from the water as the ice kept breaking beneath her. The infrastructure damage has been unlike anything we have seen since the Texas freeze 5 years ago. Over 1 million customers lost power at the peak of this crisis. Natural gas prices hit $30 per unit, the highest on record. Mississippi saw nearly 300,000 customers without electricity, with some areas warned they would be in the dark for weeks, not days. 400 poles, 90 transformers, and over 1,400 spans of wire were damaged across Louisiana and Mississippi alone. But here is something that might surprise you. Texas, which failed so catastrophically during the last major winter crisis, actually succeeded this time. The grid held perfectly. Battery storage provided over 7,000 megawatts at one point, powering the equivalent of nearly 2 million homes. The infrastructure improvements they made after their previous disaster worked when they were tested again. Transportation across the country was devastated. Nearly 20,000 flights were canceled during the worst storms. American Airlines called it the most disruptive weather event in their 100-year history. On the roads, multiple hundred-vehicle pileups closed major interstates. Michigan saw over 100 vehicles involved in crashes on a single stretch of highway. Drop a comment and let me know where you are located and how this weather has been affecting your area. I am seeing reports from viewers across the country dealing with everything from record snowfall to unprecedented warmth, and I want to hear what you are experiencing firsthand. What is happening right now is this dramatic warming trend across the eastern United States. The National Weather Service confirms that an expansive high-pressure system is building from the southern plains to the Midwest, bringing widespread above normal temperatures. We are talking about cities that were experiencing life-threatening cold just days ago, now preparing for temperatures that will feel like a heat wave. Dallas could hit the 70s or even the 80s this week. Washington, D.C. is expected to reach the 50s, which forecasters are describing as feeling like summer after what residents have endured. Chicago might see temperatures near 60 degrees, which represents a 70-degree swing from where they were just weeks ago. But here is the critical part that everyone needs to understand. This warm-up is temporary. A major Canadian Arctic cold pool is intensifying right now, and the same atmospheric disruption that caused this crisis is still active above us. The polar vortex remains fractured and unstable. Scientists who have been tracking this event are divided on what comes next. Some are calling this latest disruption a Canadian warming rather than a full split, while others are warning that we are seeing a strong sudden stratospheric warming that could trigger another major cold intrusion. The difference between these scenarios could mean the difference between winter ending early or extending well into March with another round of dangerous conditions. The western United States is finally seeing some changes too. Heavy storms are expected to hit California starting around mid-February, bringing desperately needed rain and snow to areas experiencing the lowest snow cover in satellite records. Oregon, Colorado, and Utah all reported record-low snowpack levels. Salt Lake City had received only 1/10 of an inch of snow for the entire season, 33 inches below average. This dramatic contrast between regions highlights something unprecedented about this winter. The atmospheric patterns have been so extreme that it is like watching two completely different climate zones existing simultaneously across North America. The jet stream has been locked in this massive U-shaped pattern, keeping the western states abnormally warm, while funneling Arctic air deep into areas that rarely see such extreme conditions. Canada has been hit just as hard. Toronto received its heaviest single-day snowfall on record, with nearly 2 feet falling in one day. January became Toronto's snowiest month in recorded history. Cross-border trade has been severely disrupted, with major bridge crossings operating at only 20% of normal truck volume. The emergency response has been unprecedented. 12 federal emergency declarations were approved across affected states. Over 5,400 National Guard members were activated across 15 states. FEMA pre-staged 300 generators, 7 million meals, 3 million liters of water, and over 600,000 blankets before the worst storms hit. What makes this situation particularly dangerous is how unprepared many areas were for this level of extreme weather. The Southeast and Mid-South bore the brunt of conditions they rarely experience. North Carolina endured 2 major storms in 1 week, with some areas receiving over 25 inches of snow. Charlotte recorded its 4th highest single-day snowfall since 1880. The records that were broken during this event tell the story of just how extreme this has been. Florida saw temperatures that shattered records from 1936. Little Rock, Arkansas received 6 inches of snow, breaking a record from 1899. Dayton, Ohio logged over 12 inches in 24 hours, setting an all-time single-day record. New York City saw its biggest one-day accumulation in 3 years. Lake Erie reached 96% ice coverage, the highest since 1996. 56% of the entire continental United States was covered in snow at the peak, the second highest coverage in 20 years. These are not just weather statistics. They represent conditions that pushed infrastructure, emergency services, and human endurance to their limits. If you found this information helpful for understanding what is happening with our weather right now, hit that like button and share this with anyone who needs to know about these developing conditions. Information like this could literally help save lives as we head into whatever comes next with this unstable weather pattern. The climate science community is deeply divided on what this event tells us about future winters. Some research suggests that Arctic ice loss is making these polar vortex disruptions more common, while other studies argue that cold extremes should actually become less frequent as the planet warms. What is undeniable is that this winter has pushed weather records to extremes we have not seen in decades. Looking ahead to the rest of February and early March, the key question is whether this warming reprieve will hold, or if we are about to see another dangerous plunge. The same atmospheric dynamics that created this crisis are still active. The Madden-Julian Oscillation, a powerful tropical weather pattern, has been interfering with the typical progression of these events, and that interference is expected to weaken soon. Multiple forecast models are showing the potential for a significant cold outbreak by late February. If this happens, it could affect areas that are just starting to recover from the infrastructure damage and human toll of the current crisis. Emergency management officials across affected states are urging residents to remain prepared for the possibility of more severe weather. The economic impact is still being calculated, but early estimates suggest direct damages of over $4 billion, making this the first billion-dollar weather disaster of 2026. Some analysts are projecting total economic impact could reach over $100 billion when indirect costs are included, though other economists question whether those figures are accurate. What is certain is that this event has exposed vulnerabilities in our infrastructure and emergency response systems that will need to be addressed. The success of Texas in keeping their grid stable shows that improvements are possible, but the widespread power outages and communication failures in other states demonstrate how much work remains to be done. The human stories from this crisis will stay with us long after the weather returns to normal. Families who lost loved ones, communities that came together to help their most vulnerable residents, first responders who worked around the clock in dangerous conditions, and ordinary citizens who opened their homes to neighbors in need. As we move forward through the rest of this winter, the most important thing is staying informed about rapidly changing conditions and being prepared for whatever this unstable weather pattern might bring next. The polar vortex may be thousands of miles above us, but when it breaks apart like this, the effects reach every corner of our daily lives. The next few weeks will be critical for understanding whether this winter crisis is finally ending, or if we are just experiencing a temporary break before another dangerous turn in America's most unpredictable winter in years.